Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 48 of the HaskinCast Podcast. 48, man, that's crazy. I had a goal of doing 300 episodes because that's what iTunes would host. And that seemed like a good number. You know, that's a lot of scheduling, a lot of reaching out to people, a lot of rejection. But that's still 300 guests or 300 episodes, including some of the ones that I do by myself. Actually, all the ones I do by myself. So, so I'm heading along well, and I'm almost 1/6 of the way there. And it is middle of June while I'm recording this, and started in the beginning of October. So it's only been a few months, not quite a year. And we're already at creeping up on episode 50. So very excited. And I'd like to thank all of you that have hung in there with me, that have listened to episodes, that have given me feedback, that have written to me, that have posted anything or, shared the podcast, which is very important. And thanks to all the people who have signed up to like the HaskinCast Podcast page on Facebook. All of you, of course, are entered into a drawing that I do monthly for a flash drive containing all 5 Mental Sauna albums. So I appreciate everybody that has given me all the support, and it's really been amazing, and especially my guests, because without them, it's just me rambling on about God knows what, and some of you listen to that too, so I appreciate it. So this week's guest is someone that I actually just met recently on my very, very quick trip down to Arizona, where I attended Phoenix Fan Fusion and booked some back-to-back meetings while I was down there, and then rushed up north to Chino Valley to spend a day with my dad, and then over to Sedona to visit my friends Michael and Carla on the way home. And Michael was on the show earlier. He's the one that has the Element 115 band. Carla was the bass player in that band. And he's also doing Terranomaly, which Wake Up is such an amazing album. I actually listen to it every morning to start my day. And then I do some meditation and brain expansion exercises and music. So, definitely some good stuff. And if you are in Sedona or going to Sedona, get in contact with Michael, because he does some really amazing UFO tours at night with very, very high-powered night vision goggles. Really interesting stuff. Always seeing something moving around in the sky. Take that as you will, depending on what you believe. But certainly an interesting outing nonetheless. And of course, it's beautiful in Sedona. So much energy up there with the vortexes and all that. Or is it vortices would be correct? I'm not sure. Somebody will write in and correct me, I'm sure. But so it's cool. Big concert season coming up for me. I've got, I think I talked about this already. I've got Uriah Heep coming up with Judas Priest, and that should be fun. Not really that excited about Judas Priest because I was never really into them, but it should be a good show. Uriah Heep, I've been listening to since I was just a wee thing. Then I've got the Asia Carl Palmer Experience and Yes coming up, both here in Vegas at the Joint, at the Hard Rock, and then Lost 80s Live will be over off of Fremont Street in September, and then Deep Purple's coming with the Long Goodbye Tour. In fact, I don't even know who's opening that show. Lost 80s Live is 16 bands this year so far. That could change. Last I saw it was 16, and some really good ones. Missing Persons, Flock of Seagulls. Tommy Two-Tone is going to be there this year. He was not there last year. I'm bummed that Berlin is not coming back, at least not so far. But they put on an amazing show last year. It was very exciting, very dramatic, and vocals, the musicians, everything was fantastic. What a great show. It's a long day, but it's a great show just the same. So that's pretty much what's going on. Got the audiobook I'm working on. Addicted is back on hold. I've run into yet another issue with that album that I have to figure out how to solve. So in the meantime, I'm going to get the next and final Haunted Holidays album finished. That one's coming along nicely. The music is almost done. I think I've got 3 more songs to touch up, and then I can go to the mixing phase. So that'll be done sometime in July. And then hopefully I'll be able to jump back on Addicted or on one of the other projects that I've got planned. There's so many and only so much time. But I love the audiobook editing because it gives me something a little bit different to do. I haven't done one in a while. So that's fun. And it's with the new authors. So that could be that could be a fun thing too. I've listened to some samples of her voice, and she's a really fun, really exciting reader. She's got a really enjoyable voice, so it's a good project, and I'm working on that while I'm cleaning up the audio and letting all that run in the background. I think tonight I will take a walk down the Strip. It's been I think it's been a week, a little over a week. I've only been one since I've been back from Arizona because I've been so busy between the podcast and the project. So one other announcement, actually two more announcements. Next week will be part 2 of Marcus Weiss's interview for the Marcus Weiss Experience. A lot of people listened to the first episode with him. A lot of fans of the Blue Man Group, a lot of fans of Cirque du Soleil, and a lot of fans of Le Rêve tuned in for that, as well as just other people that are interested. And it was a great turnout. So I'm hoping that you'll all follow around and listen to episode 2 of that, the final part. And then I have decided, just because of the sheer amount of projects that I have going on, I'm actually going to be taking a hiatus for the month of August. There are, the podcast takes a lot of time, a little more time than I thought it would. I've edited podcasts before, but this is actually a lot more involved because I'm doing everything myself now and doing all the booking and the schedule, trying to schedule with people who are in the entertainment business can be very, very difficult. And so I've got a lot of stuff going on just with the podcast, and then working on the albums, hitting these snags, things getting delayed. Albums still have to happen on a reasonable schedule, especially holiday related albums. And I've got some Christmas stuff I want to do if possible this year as well. Some stuff that I've been wanting to do for the last 3 or 4 years and just haven't gotten to it. So hopefully this year we'll see those things arrive. So August is going to be a month off, and then I'll be hitting it pretty hard again come September, and then we'll hit the year anniversary in October. So it rolls on, and I'm still going to hit, still shooting for that 300 goal, despite whatever the hell Apple is doing with iTunes. I've heard that there's going to be something similar, and they're just breaking it into different things, like one podcast thing, one music thing, one movie thing. I don't know what's behind that. If iTunes itself is just getting too bogged down as the media grows massively every year. So I just haven't had time to look into it. I'm sure some of you guys already know what's going on with it, and I'll figure it out at some point. So anyway, that's what's happening here. Now, my guest today is absolutely wonderful. I actually just met her on the spur of the moment when I was down in Phoenix attending Summer Helene's panel that she does every year about blood and guts and violence in film, and why that helps them sell. And it does. That's, huge key components. Action movies are huge. Horror movies are huge. Nudity is huge. Those are things that all attract people to watch and purchase movies. So her panel is about that. And this year she had her co-host with her from the behind the scenes show where my music plays weekly on the radio, and Paul Michael Boland, who's the host of his own show, The Militant Moderate. Not a big politic guy myself, as you guys have heard. I never talk about it, so there are many reasons for that. But this is also an entertainment podcast, so why would I? The panel was great. It's always interesting because the variable is always the audience. It's very interactive, so the audience can really change the dynamics of the actual talk. And I attended it the first time the year that I did my panel at Comic-Con, which was on music and sound and film. And I was told that I was going to be part of a panel, and then it turned out it was just me, which was fine. It was great. I had a good time. It was an hour, and I had a lot of good feedback on that. So that was fun. I wouldn't mind doing that again one of these days if the time and schedule allowed for it. But anyway, Summer always has 2 models. One of them is the blood and guts, and one of them is the action. And this young lady came dressed as Laura Croft. So she was perfect. It was all a last minute thing. She was already in her costume or had her costume going when she got the call to do it, because as usual, it seems like every year a model drops out at the last minute and they have to scramble to find somebody. And fortunately, she was available. And I had a really a nice talk with her before, and then a lovely talk with her after. And I said, I would love to have you on the podcast and talk about some of your experiences that you've been telling me about, and some that you haven't told me about yet. And she loved the idea. And we were just able to set things up really quick after a brief out-of-town trip that she took. And as soon as she got back into town, we got in contact and then recorded the podcast. So she is our guest this week. And I hope that you enjoy the talk as much as I enjoy talking to her. She's absolutely fantastic. Elley Ringo, also known as Elley Cat. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I promised, we have a wonderful guest this week. We have, I'm going to say her name this way. It is Elley Ringo, also known as Elley Cat. And I'm just going to call her Elley because I'm not going to remember that later during the show. So Elley, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing well. Did I say that right?
Yes, you said that perfect.
Okay, good. I always get a little bit nervous when they're like made up names or like stage names. I'm afraid because I usually know the person pretty well outside of doing the show. So I tend to refer to them as who they are in real life. So I'll just call you Elley. And I think that's probably the safest thing I can do.
I think that's fantastic.
Excellent. Well, you and I actually just recently met. You're the first guest that I've had on the show that has been a recent meeting. We met while you were working as a model at Summer Helene's show at what used to be called Comic-Con in Phoenix and is now Phoenix Fan Fusion. How did you like being the model that stood there for an hour and a half?
Actually, I really enjoyed it. I had no idea what I was getting into up until probably an hour before the show.
Really?
And yeah, I was actually kind of the short version of the way it went down. I was getting into my Lara Croft costume that I wore that day at about 9:00 in the morning. And my friend James was like, hey, do you want to get dressed up and have someone like throw blood on you and walk around in a bikini? I'm like, no, not really. He's like, oh, okay, then that's not going to work. I was like, why? What's going on? He's all, well, someone needs another model to fill in for some radio show. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't really want to get bloody because I'm going to be in this all day. And I was in my Lara Croft costume. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, I'll just tell him you're not interested. Well, about 3 hours later, he calls and he's all, hey, this girl really needs some help. And I was like, okay, go ahead and give her my number. And so I was expecting a call from Jessica, one of the girls that was there. And instead, I got a call from Alexis, who was Summer's assistant. Mm-hmm. And she's all, hey, we're doing this thing. Are you interested? And I was right in the middle of the Fan Fusion, like the booth. So where you can go meet everybody and take pictures.
Oh, okay.
I could barely hear anything. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, okay. And so I could tell she wasn't from Phoenix area because she's all, are you busy this evening? And I'm like, well, actually, I have to be in Prescott, which is, like almost 2 hours from Phoenix. And she's all, well, could you be back here by 6? And I'm like, oh, wow, she's not from here. But I was like, let me ask my boyfriend real quick and I'll get back to you. So I talked to my boyfriend. I said, hey, this cool thing came up and this model needs some help. And so I'm available. I'm going to try and make this happen. And he's all, yeah, babe, whatever you want. And so I let Alexis know that I would do it. And then I met them an hour before the event. She's like, here, hold this sign and go tell people to come to this room. I'm like, yeah, okay, this sounds good. And so as I'm reading the sign, that's when I find out what I'm doing.
Oh, nice.
Yes, as I'm telling people to go do this. So it was a total improv. And I had no idea even what I would be doing up in front of the guests, but I found it fantastic. And so even my screaming was impromptu. I had no idea I was going to scream, but I was like, hey, I know how to scream. So when, Summer asked people to scream, I just let it out. So apparently it impressed her because she wants me to record my scream. So that sounds nice. Great.
No, it was fantastic. It was very, very powerful. And you're, if you look at you outside of costume, you're fairly a demure, very pretty looking young lady. And you wouldn't look at you and think, I bet that girl's got a set of pipes. But let me tell you, this girl can scream. I thought I really, if I had my eyes closed, I would have thought that somebody ran into the room with like a machine gun or something, and that was a real scream because it was off the cuff, but it was all there, all power, sounded fantastic.
That's awesome. I'm so glad because I haven't heard from anybody but Summer that my scream was great. I just know that when I screamed, I gave myself goosebumps. And not that I'm like tooting my own horn, but I was like, holy shit, I kind of scared myself. So I just kind of held my sign there, trying not to shake in front of the crowd. And then it went away. But I thought it was cool.
Well, no, it was. And my first thought was, okay, how many horror movies have you done?
only a couple.
And that was the surprising thing for me. I'm like, that is such a skill, because that is not something people can try and scream, but to make it sound believable because it is with the full force, as if you are truly terrified in that moment, that is
Yes.
not easy to pull off. And you just went, okay, I'll scream. And then you did it. That was impressive.
Thank you. I'd say throughout my life, I've had some fairly terrifying things. And so just to kind of remember one and go, okay, hopefully this comes out in my voice.
Wow.
I can project that way. I've always been told, hey, you're a great public speaker. You can project. And I would gain that, I would say, from doing a lot of theater, because in theater, you learn to scream. I learned to sing properly. And so you use muscles that are not going to make it so that you don't have a voice the next day if you scream.
Right. You learn how to do it properly, like a singer learning how to sing, from their chest and not from their lungs.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You got to use that diaphragm in your stomach.
Diaphragm. That's the word I was looking for. Yes, I should be driving.
Yes.
No, it was great. And I kind of, in a way, I kind of loved that it was last minute, because you really couldn't build up too much concern. If you knew specifically, like, let's say that we're going to need you to scream, a lot of people might build up, oh, I hope I do this well. And what if I don't? And then you kind of sabotage yourself.
Yeah.
But there's two things I highly recommend that everybody carry when they go to giant events like that, where there's, 150,000 people and it's just going to be loud and chaos. Earplugs. And you guys have heard me say this on the show. I absolutely love the earplugs that I got from Eargasm. They're the only earplugs that I can be in a loud area and still have a conversation and hear what the person next to me is saying. And then a pair of earbuds for phone calls, for, anything that you need to be able to hear what people are saying, and you can't.
I definitely wish I would have had the earbuds, but are those two-way earplugs that you're talking about?
No, these are they're earplugs, but they're made with a special piece in the middle that allows certain frequencies through while it blocks out the majority of other frequencies. They're
sweet.
Really, really amazing. I've never had anything like them before. And so every year in January when I go to the NAMM show, I make sure to stop by their booth and say hello and thank them for this wonderful gift, because I wear them all the time.
Awesome.
Yeah. When I walk the strip, if I go to a concert, if I'm seeing some friends perform, whatever it is, I've got them in. But yeah, those are two very helpful items to have at any of these major, and even if you're going to like EDM or any of those big shows where there's just going to be a lot of people and a lot of noise, you can't communicate.
Nope.
So those are helpful things to have.
Definitely. I have gone through, I would think, my fair share of like the throwaway earplugs that going to EDC.
Sure.
Because if you don't, like the next morning, like I can't talk the next morning because I end up just talking all night, like screaming to talk to people because no one can hear you.
Sure.
But at least I can hear the next morning and my ears aren't ringing. So that part's fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely better than nothing, especially at something that's going to be a lot of thumpy bass drum music.
Yeah.
Where it really just pounds your chest. Think about what that's doing to your eardrum.
For sure.
Yeah. So no, that's smart. So this was a modeling gig really for you, because your job, they never did end up covering you in blood, or did they? I don't remember.
No. I didn't speak covered in blood. So I was just there. And so I was, there was a girl that was covered in blood and kind of gory, and she was supposed to be like the sex and gore sort of part of it. And since I was Laura Croft, I was the action sort of part of it. So that, sex and action sell. That was the kind of the push there for advertising, I guess.
Yes. And Summer gives that talk every year. And every year it's interesting because it's so audience interactive that you really never know what you're going to be dealing with.
Yeah, for sure. I could see that.
Yeah. So that was like a last minute gig that you got. And those are always cool, because if you can make them work, those are the people that are probably going to come back to you and recommend you to other people, because of how cooperative you were, how at the last minute you're willing to jump in. Do you find that through your career, that's kind of been the case? Those last minute gigs can lead to good things?
Oh, completely. I've had, I wouldn't use the word success, but I would say that it's like an earmark for me that a lot of photographers, there's so much modeling in the Phoenix area, right?
Mm-hmm.
there are some really fantastic professional photographers here. And then there's some real amateurs trying to get into the business, and same for models. But when a model flakes out, doesn't call, or shows up 30 minutes late, or even, sometimes an hour late. I've heard just stories about, that model was 2 hours late. We had an hour left on the studio time. I was like, whoa, I'm always, 10 minutes early, usually, if not dead on time. And sometimes those last minute things, someone's like, hey, this person just canceled on me. Do you think you can fill in? And the fact that you're willing to just go, yeah, I'm here. I can do this. It might take me an extra 15 minutes to get to you, but I can. And then once they find out that I drove 2.5 hours to get to them to do it last minute, I mean, it even puts, I would say, more, what's the word I'm looking for? Just more backup to what you say that you will do or can do.
Sure.
Because anybody can say, yeah, I'll be there, no problem. But someone that's willing to do something last minute when they have nothing vested in it in the beginning.
Sure.
It really, I would say it speaks for your character. And I have so many photographers that would be willing to just give me a world of references and just love working with me because I'm always on time. I'm super professional, and it takes them about half the time to shoot me that it does the other models that are, say show up and they're high, or they're just coming off of a high and they're sitting there going, oh, you wasted last night. And you're like, so why'd you show up for a shoot today?
Right. Yeah.
Just kind of that. I'm tired, and man, I've heard just some horror stories. I got to tell you.
Oh, I can imagine. And obviously just showing up in that condition, you're probably not going to get a lot of work. And Phoenix has a lot going on, but it's also a small town, and it doesn't take much for somebody's reputation. Even in LA, it doesn't take much for somebody's reputation to get ruined fairly quickly if they prove that they're unreliable, aren't taking the work seriously, not taking care of themselves enough to give a good shoot. There's so much involved. But being that you're a little bit taller than the average model in Phoenix, when you have to fill in like that, is costuming a challenge?
Well, sometimes it has been, because there's been sometimes, that a model that's 5'2" is going to weigh a lot less than a model that's 5'9". And I don't choose to be that ultra skinny, paper thin sort of model. I'm toned and I'm fit. And a lot of the photographers I work with love it that I'm more fit. They love my body and my structure. So when they have this little bitty, like double-aught dress, they're like, can you fit in this? I'm going, And I've tried, and I walk in, I was like, well, my ass is round. I said, because I work out, so it's not going to fit. I'm sorry. I said, the rest fits,
right,
but the ass doesn't. So they're like, not a problem. We'll work around it. Put on what you brought. Because I always bring as many different outfits for the occasion as I can. I have an entire room in my house. Not that my house is very big where I live, but I converted the entire thing into my closet. And so I have a gigantic model closet. So I'm just like, okay, what am I going to bring? And seriously, the Goodwill is my best friend.
Oh, sure.
Oh, man. I mean, when you need something last minute, I got a hold of a photographer for this weekend. He has like a last minute time to do a shoot in a cornfield. And I was like, wow, this is an amazing shot. I said, I'd love to do a shoot like this. So he DMs me and he's like, I'm available this Sunday if you are. I'm like, yep, done. He's all, do you have this, this, and this? I'm like, sure. And I went to the Goodwill and I found an apron, and I found like a black coat and a sweater vest flowy deal. I was like, damn, these are almost identical to the pictures he sent me for like inspiration. So I was like, sweet. I texted back. I said, I found everything we need at the Goodwill. And he had like question marks. And I was like, don't worry about it. It'll match great. So I sent pictures. He's like, damn, that's perfect.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. And I had another friend, Sarah, when she was on the show. She was an actor in Phoenix, and she lives out of state now, but she did the same thing. She just, she was going to crash this set, and it was sort of a vintage, I think she said 1920s type thing. And she went to Goodwill and she found everything that she needed to put an outfit together. And I'm like, I love that. But the question I have is, why do we keep committing to things that we don't know we can pull off and then find some magic way to pull them off? Like, why would we even do that? But we do it all the time.
Honestly, I would say that I have a lot of faith in myself that I'm going to figure it out. Like, where there's a will, there's a way. And, uh, I don't know, the necessity is the mother of invention. And so if we can figure out where to go or pull things out of our brains, and if I can't find it, I make it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think it's just human nature for some of us to say, yes, I can do that, even though in the back of our minds we're going, oh shit, I have no idea if I have this, but damn, I got to figure it out. And I'm a lot like that. I am half the time I'm willing to commit before I even know I can do it. But I know that there's something inside me that is, if it takes the last minute, I'll pull it out and figure it out.
Mm-hmm. I think there's something about that drives us.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would probably give up and lose the job, but I think there's a certain type of person that uses that to drive them to that success, because I've committed to it. People are counting on me, so I better find a way to get this done. And then we just do.
Exactly. I truly believe that.
And I think you nailed it on the head. I think that belief in yourself is a really big key to that, because if you get off the phone with the photographer and then you're like, oh man, why did I just agree to that? I don't know how I'm going to do that. And you start self-defeating, you're probably not going to think of the things that you need to do to make that successful, because you're in the wrong mindset.
Mm-hmm. You have to have faith in yourself, and you are truly the only person that can beat yourself up over that. I mean, sure, everybody has a past, and everybody goes through these times where people bring them to the ground. And I could say that I've had, I think, more than most. And if you can't find those little shreds of faith, or, and some people might say that, oh, I don't have that because I have a past and all of these things have happened to me, but it's in you. If you believe in yourself, you need to keep going for it, no matter what it takes. And
that's right.
I read something the other day that said, if all you can think about are the things you want to do, never stop trying to do those things.
I like that.
And I'm like going, damn, I daydream about what I want to do all the time. And it's definitely not sitting here behind this computer screen.
Exactly. But that's the thing, is you're motivated. And it's really easy to just fall into life and go, well, I have to work a full-time job. I have to do this. I have got kids, or whatever the story is. But it's also easy to find time to do the things that you want to do if you really want to do them bad enough.
Exactly. Now that I'm very proud of a lot of the models that I've worked with. And lucky for them, a lot of them have, I'm not necessarily thinking the word sugar daddy, but they have sugar daddies, or they have that person that supports them. So they can, at the drop of a hat, any day of the week, go and sit in front of a camera. Sure. Or, do whatever it is that they're doing. And yeah, some of them have done great doing that. Others, they just kind of like, I would say, nurse off the tit and just sit there and hope that something happens. Right. Someone else is driving it for them and pushing them to say, get out there, you can do this. But they don't have that drive. And not that I'm, any more special than any other person, but I work a 40-hour-a-week job, and it's a professional job for a huge company. And then I have to tell photographers, hey, I'm only available on these days. And I've had to put in, I would say, a lot of dues just by doing a lot of free work, getting really crappy pictures from it, going to auditions and getting the tiniest background roll of something because I couldn't be there on a work day. Mm-hmm. But because I've worked so hard and I've put in my dues and I come up with great pictures, and when I say I'm going to be there, I'm there. I usually book out 2.5 months in advance, because all of my weekends are completely full and I work a 40-hour-a-week job. So saying I don't have downtime is beyond. I mean, I'm always on the go. Mm-hmm. And it sucked so bad too. 3 weeks ago, I had to cancel a shoot the morning of.
Oh, that's painful.
Oh yeah. I drove, there's a little cutoff road from where I live to the highway. And I was on that road, and I'm like, I should check and just make sure that everything's fine with my car. It didn't sound exactly right. I knew that I had a little bit of seepage of oil under my car. So I'm like, I just got to check it. Well, I stopped my car 17 miles out of town, and when I stopped, it took me all of, I don't know, a minute to go around the car, undo the hood, look in the engine and go, oh my gosh, what's that? And then I looked under my car and there was a pool of oil. It was leaking so bad. Oh yeah. So I got a hold of the photographer and I said, I am so sorry. I don't know exactly what happened. And I had to cancel it the day of, and I was so disappointed in myself. And he's like, don't worry about it. It's okay. I'll rent the plane some other time. And I'm like, oh, it's not making me feel any better right now.
Wow.
And he's all, the car is mine and it's in the hangar. We'll just make sure that we can rent the plane on a different date. And so now we've scheduled that for, the end of July, because he's working and I'm working and I'm booked up. But I have to be dying or like physically can't get there because of a car emergency,
right,
or I go to a shoot. I mean, I've shot with the stomach flu. I've shot with food poisoning. I've, shot with everything coming out of both ends. But the photographers never knew until I told them after I left.
Nice.
And so, I think I got completely off topic from what we were talking about. I just went on a tangent.
Well, no, that's okay, because I think the thing is that it really depends not just on the relationship you have with the people that are hiring you, but also just who you are and how you present it. So if you presented it as, you know what, my car broke down, I'm not going to be able to get there. There's a big difference between that and, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then feeling that sound in your voice that says, you really mean this. You really are concerned because you're letting them down. And you didn't even know about the plane yet. That would have been a whole nother level of guilt. But, but I think that's the big difference. And I've had that happen too, where I had a computer crash in the middle of doing 2 audiobooks and a short film. And I had to upgrade from, Vista to Windows 8, which had just come out like 3 days before.
Crap.
Most of my software was not compatible with Windows 8. So I was just stuck, and I had this film that was coming up, and I ended up having to turn the film down because I couldn't get the system up and running fast enough. And I recommended another composer, and I said, here's who I think you should use. And the director wrote me a couple weeks later and said, I really respect the fact that you didn't string me along, that you told me what was going on, that you kept me in the loop, and that eventually you had to turn it down because you didn't want to damage the timing of the film and all of that. And that's it. If you keep a good relationship with people, they'll understand when things come up because they know you're the kind of person that if there's something wrong, it's something severe.
Yeah.
And you're not a flake.
Exactly. And that's why, and the other thing that brought on an even more immense amount of guilt was that this was a brand new photographer. I hadn't even worked with him before.
I was going to ask you what the relationship was. So that's really tough.
That was tough. But you know what? We text back and forth. I even showed him that what had kind of happened to my car. Mm-hmm. I had to replace the oil pan seal. And I had to replace my entire exhaust because my cats failed. Wow. And so I showed him all this stuff I had in my living room floor that I'd ordered for this. And he's all, well, from your bio, I figured you were just going to pull out a wrench and replace your engine on the road. I was like, oh, I think it worked like that. But thank you for the confidence.
Right. But that's cool, though, that he still wants to shoot with you, that he wasn't just, passive just to keep it pleasant. And then as soon as he got off the phone with you going, okay, who am I going to get for this next time?
Yep, and he's totally been cool about it because we were actually set to shoot first thing tomorrow morning, and he let me know earlier this week. He's all, hey, my work's taken me out until like the middle of July, so I'm so sorry I have to cancel on you now, but we'll set another time. So we've gotten back to each other in this week and set up a different date. But yeah, I was so grateful that he really knew that I was concerned because I was freaking out. I mean,
oh yeah.
I was like, oh man, I don't cancel on anybody. So it sucked. I mean, like you were saying with you and not stringing that guy along, that shows true integrity, that you're willing to put yourself aside for the project because the project means something, not just to you, but to other people as well.
Right. And in my case, I had worked with him on another film prior. So he knew me well enough to know that I wouldn't do that unless it was something severe. Again, that I was going to have to hold up the project for a lengthy amount of time. And at this point, I'm spending my days going back and forth with the software manufacturers and a couple times with Microsoft to try and figure out how we can integrate these programs, get them up and running in Windows 8. I mean, I'm literally doing everything I can think of to get myself up and running as fast as possible. But at the end, it just wasn't going to happen quickly enough to make the film work. So I was glad that he respected my decision and that he appreciated it. But at least in my case, I had a history with the guy. He knew where I was coming from.
Yep.
He knew how bad I wanted to work with him again because we'd had such a good experience the first go around. And to have to turn that down was a really painful thing. But when it's somebody you've never worked with before, that certainly says something about your reputation for him to not, to take you seriously and be understanding, having never shot with you before.
Yeah, establishing a good relationship with those people that you work with, because I don't know who he contacted to check up on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it happens all the time. I check up on photographers if I get like a little creepy vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And so to know that whomever he may have talked to, or maybe just from the body of my work, that he knew I was professional enough to want to work with me again, which I was so grateful that I have worked so well on my reputation that it stood behind me and allowed him to want to work with me again, which was awesome.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And I like it when people that are good, honest people, people that work hard will go that extra mile to do things when something does happen. They've built up that reputation so that people know to take it seriously and not think that you're just blowing them off because something better came along or you just didn't want to go or whatever, that it's a real valid reason. And when I look at your resume and I look at all the magazines that you've shot for, just that alone tells me that doesn't happen without gaining people's trust.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. You maybe get 2 or 3, and then you're really going to be hard pressed to find somebody to shoot you if you have a bad reputation after that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless you're like a certain level of celebrity where apparently they can just do whatever and people are going to want to shoot them. In fact, the more controversial, the better in a lot of cases.
Exactly. And I'm not there yet, but someday it will happen. I have big dreams.
Absolutely. And this what we're talking about right now, I think is going to be a big part of you getting there. But you mentioned that, if you trust your intuition, which I love, and that you kind of feel out when you need to check up on somebody. I like to talk to different models and actors when they come on the show about this, because you can be isolated with somebody. You really are putting a certain amount of trust in them. Even though you can dress as Lara Croft and you're probably kind of a badass. I don't doubt that, but still you don't want to go putting yourself in jeopardy. So how do you, what's your process for kind of feeling somebody out that you've not worked with before? What requirements do you put on the shoot the first time to make sure that you're safe?
Well, and I've even told this to a couple photographers, but if I get the first impression that this person's got, I don't know, maybe a different agenda, or when they say, yeah, I'd like to do this artistic stuff, but really their underlying message in a couple of, emails or something back and forth implies that they just want straight nude to almost a porn version of things. I flat tell people, I don't do that, like right up front. That's not me.
Right.
Can't get me to do it. No thanks. But they kind of keep maybe feeling that out a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll see if anybody's worked with them. And then if nobody's worked with them, I'm not the first person to tell them no, because that's not fair if somebody would have done that to me without giving me a chance. If I came off weird one day, right? If I was just having a bad day.
Right.
So I'll kind of fish around in a sense that first off, I give them my rates. And if they're willing to pay my rates, then I know that they're probably just not there to use their cell phone.
Right.
And something that I had kind of, let's say, earlier this year or end of last year, if someone wanted to take photos of me, and I don't want to give too many details in case that person ever listens, they wouldn't know what it was about. But they contacted me through Instagram, and they're like, yeah, if you could send me some pictures of you so that I could get a good sense of your body and I would know where to place things and whatnot to make the art come out great. That'd be fantastic. And I'm like, okay. And so I sent them some of the stuff I had on my Instagram, and my Instagram's censored, but it's wide open. I mean, you can clearly see my figure, and I have a bubble butt and I have boobs. It's not like I'm, flat chested with no ass. And so, it's very out there. So he's like, could you send me some like selfies of you in front of the mirror, just naked? And I'm like, this is already in a weird place.
Yeah.
And so I went through his page. And a lot of the girls, you couldn't really see their faces. And so I'm like, okay, do I know anybody? No one's really tagged. The art looks really cool. But and so I asked a little bit more, and I was like, so, what kind of equipment do you use? And I was trying to get off topic. And they're like, I just use my cell phone. And I went, huh?
For the photo shoot?
For the photo shoot. And I went, you're going to admit that in a message. And so I was even more getting a creeper vibe, right? And this is on the extreme side of like creeper. But so I finally saw a model that I thought I recognized their butt. Sadly, that's what it was. So I actually messaged the model and I was like, hey, was this you? And they're like, yeah, I worked with them. And, they sent me the full photo and I was like, so do you recommend them? They're like, no, massive creeper. Don't work with them. Stay far away. And so I messaged a couple other girls and they said the exact same thing. So having that network of people, really helps.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And that's fantastic. That is on the more extreme side of things that I've had, because I'm just like, so you're asking for naked selfies, so my professional photos won't work for you?
Right.
Like that.
Right. Why do you need to see me naked if I'm not going to be naked on the shoot?
Exactly. So it was a little creepy and stuff, and I've had the more like subtle, I don't know who you are. Are you just a guy with a camera that wants to take my photo? And no one's worked with them. I've never seen any of their work before, because there's a lot of people that use Model Mayhem, which I'm kind of new to that because I'm more on the Instagram and Facebook side of things.
Right. Yeah. Was this a paid gig?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this, the guy says, yeah, I'll pay this rate for this much time and, we'll go do these things. And so I'm like, okay, no one knows him. I don't know him. Some of his work is okay, but I'm like, he wants to pay me to go do this. I'm going to tell 3 people where I'm at and give them the address and I'm going to show up.
Right.
He was the coolest guy.
Well, let me ask you, was this a remote location? Was it like out in a field, in a barn somewhere that's kind of isolated?
It was a more remote location. I'm not going to give it away because that would just be a dead center.
I'm just trying to, kind of assess the real red flags, because even though I reacted to, what do you mean he's doing this on his phone? But if you think about it, now that we have the iPhone X and the Samsung, that now the cameras are so good on them, you almost don't need a professional camera. But if he's on like an iPhone 5S run.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know. But no, this was a kind of a remote location, and I knew that there might have been like a person there, and so it gave me just that little, oh my gosh, sort of almost not a tingle, but just I don't know if I want to do this, but I did, and I've honestly met, by doing that and just feeling with my gut, going, okay, this doesn't sound like it's totally bad. But you always get like the stranger danger sort of thing from when you were younger.
Sure.
And I think, is that going to happen to me? Like, is someone going to want to snatch me? I'm like, I'm kind of too old for that, but you never know.
Yeah, you really don't.
But I've met some of the most amazing people that way. And I have such great relationships with them now that, gosh, I am like the first person to give somebody a chance. But the minute you screw me over, oh man, you better watch your back.
Well, yeah. And now, what made you actually go then? Considering all the things that you just said, what was it that made you actually go, even after checking with these models and everybody saying, don't even go near this guy?
Oh, no, not that guy.
Not that guy.
Just said, see you later. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I said that was more on the extreme side of things. And I said a less extreme side was like, no one's worked with him. They still want to, they'll pay my rate. They want to go do this. But yet I don't recognize their work, but I'm going to give them a chance.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's the less extreme side. And I just kind of, in that case, when no one's worked with them, but it's just kind of a iffy thing, I go with my gut. And if my gut doesn't say, hell no, then I kind of push my limits a little bit. And that's where I've met fantastic people. But no, when someone flat tells me, stay far away from that person, I take that as gospel, because I've seen cases of girls that have been stalked and, raped and almost, murdered from not listening to either their friends or family, just going, hey, stay away from that person. Or I've heard sketchy things, but I haven't met them. You got to listen to people sometimes. So no, in those cases, definitely listen to people.
Well, and when I was younger, I used to think that I was impenetrable, right? Like no matter what I did,
Yeah.
it didn't matter. I would not get hurt. I would be fine. If I was playing badminton, I would dive and my pants would be ripped and my knees would be bloody playing badminton. You kind of feel like you're untouchable and you just feel like you can
Oh,
do
yeah.
whatever you do and you ignore warning signs. But as I've gotten older, well, for one, I can't run as fast, so I'm a little more aware of my surroundings. But really, trusting your intuition is the biggest. I've always said it's the biggest tool that we have.
Totally.
You have to listen to that voice. You have to listen to what you're feeling inside.
Yeah. And I guess I have learned the hard way, I think twice with, one, when I was much younger, this person reached out to me when I very first started any form of modeling. And, they're like, oh, you're pretty. Let's take some pictures. I was like, okay, let's do this. And so took some pictures and, he just kept taking forever to get back any pictures of me. Right. I mean, he wouldn't send anything. I was like, okay, well, this kind of sucks. Maybe that's just the way that it works. And I was naive and I didn't really know what was going on. And so there were a couple, uh, just red flags where, he said, do you think that you'd want to do some like implieds with jewelry? And I was like, that's not my thing right now. I'm not comfortable with it. And, it's not cool. So we did, I think, another photo shoot after he said that. And I was in a couple dresses and then this like faux fur jacket. And I was doing all this stuff and it was cool. But he called me on the phone and said, hey, we were going to do these edits and stuff. And but I do want to tell you, I've given you yours. Now it's my turn.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what? And he's all, well, you owe me now. He's all, you owe me some implieds or nudes. And I was like, I told you in the beginning. Oh, yeah. And at the time I was married and I had told my husband and I was like, this is freaking me out.
Yeah.
And my husband didn't even believe me because he'd already met the guy. And, he seemed like a, decent businessman sort of attitude. And he couldn't believe that he said that to me over the phone. And so I waited until I was like, well, that's not me. It's not going to happen. He's all, well, I'll just let you think about it. So he called me, I think, a week later. And I put him, like, I didn't have like speakerphone on my phone at the time. It was an old flip phone. So I put my husband side by side to the phone and I said, you have to listen as I talk to him. And he said nearly the exact same thing. And oh my gosh, I thought my husband was going to rip his head off.
Yeah.
And it was, a scary situation. And I was like, great. He knows where I live. He knows what I drive. And at this point, he kept going and sending me emails and he got more threatening and all this stuff. And I was like, dude, I don't even know. I'm not going to come back to your studio for starters. Why are you like doing this whole stalker thing? So I just quit answering him. I blocked him as best I could. And I didn't have, Facebook or anything at the time or pretty much any social media. So it just wasn't going to happen. But holy crap, it scared me to death,
Yeah. Well, and obviously, threatening somebody, being aggressive towards them is not going to make them want to come back and isolate themselves with you, especially with no clothes.
I wish more people would get the hint on that lesson there.
Well, it's easy for me to say because no one's stalking me for nudes at the moment, but
well, hey, you never know.
You never know. I see a lot of crazy things here in Vegas, I'll tell you. But that's, obviously he didn't know that your husband was there, but he knew that you were married. So there's somebody that's going to be looking after your interests. So even, obviously he didn't really have a grasp on reality.
No, not at all. I think that he was massively damaged, but I also feel that at the time I wasn't the best judge of character for meeting the guy face to face because I ended up getting divorced from that husband that wanted to kill the guy who was massively messed up. And so my growth in, I would say, reading people in, I'd say the last 14 years has gone, significantly up from just, the first part of me meeting that one person to realizing, well, I didn't even make the best life choices. I really need to rethink how I read people. So that's really helped me become, I would say, more intuitive and really trusting my gut. So when you feel that wrenching feeling of, everything on paper looks fine, but inside it just doesn't feel right.
Sure.
So again, that faith in yourself of, knowing when to like back out and run is also, I guess I would just say, a good thing to have. And it took me a little while to learn it, but I'd say I have it down at the moment.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. But in all fairness to you and to anyone else in that situation, there are two things that can cloud your judgment very easy, and those are love and lust.
Yep.
Those two things will make you just take your intuition and kick it out to the curb and go, I'm not even listening to you because you're just going to be wrong because I want this.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're in a position where you can feel that you can trust yourself and that you're really aware of what's around you, because you're right. I mean, anybody and having a good network of people too. And Phoenix, like I said, is a small community. Yeah. So it's pretty easy to validate anybody that comes into town fairly quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I love the network of people that I work with. I don't work with a lot of models just because I'm not in those cliques because I live so far away. But like the photographers and I have great relationships. Like we can sit down and, I'll have dinner with their wife and my boyfriend will come along and we'll just sit and chat like normal people. And then say in an hour after, we've eaten some food, we've let it sit for a little bit. My boyfriend is in the studio holding a light over me where I'm wearing practically nothing. And we're all laughing at what the photographer just said.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
It's stuff like that I'm like, I love this job where, that part to me is absolutely worth all of the headache that I've had to go through to get to this point.
Right. Right. Well, and obviously when it becomes more of a family oriented thing, when you become friends with the photographer and his wife, and then your boyfriend can be there on set, it's going to be as comfortable as it can be. But
yeah.
Do you find that at all restrictive in the way that you don't feel you can really let loose as a model because it becomes a friendly thing?
No, not at all. I guess those parts of my brain kind of separate that. Like I'm friends with somebody and, we can sit there and we could BS and we could talk about whatever we want to and in the family sense. But when I need to get in front of the camera and I need to sit there and I need to move a certain way or flip my hair a certain way or move my hand or whatever it is they want me to do, I'm not going to sit there and back talk towards them. They're going to get the most professional side of me in front of the camera that I can possibly give them.
Good.
And I really respect that about myself, that between business and friendship, even though I am friends with them, when it comes down to the business part of it, it's all business. And I think I'm well respected because of that. And like I was, saying before, I don't show up to a shoot if, I would say wasted the night before. Those days are long gone. I don't show up. I'm not on drugs. Like I would say a lot of the models in Phoenix are high all the time. And I have nothing against people drinking or smoking, partaking in marijuana because it's a very accepted thing now. If I was allowed to do it at my job, hey, I'd probably cut loose sometimes. But to show up like that to a photo shoot and sit there and like act almost like a 12-year-old, because I've witnessed this lately with some of the models in group photo shoots, I'm just like, why are you so unprofessional? You are doing a job right now. You're in front of, 15 different people and you're sitting there pouting, but you're sitting there acting like a 12-year-old and complaining that, oh, I'm just over this. I need to go home now, because you're not the center of attention and you're kind of too high to realize what's going on anyways.
Oh, yeah. See, I think that's the thing, is that you have to realize that every machine has a certain amount of cogs that it needs. And sometimes you're going to be a bigger cog and sometimes you're going to be a smaller cog. But the fact is you're part of the machine and you still have to run properly.
That's right. And even if you're that smallest part, you need to uphold the most amount of respect for the people that are there shooting you or filming you and anybody else that's helping you do it, no matter what's going on or what part you play. Like, your role is a role. And I just have realized a lot of, I guess, maybe the younger ones are very petty about it. And if they're not the center of attention all of a sudden, and they are that smaller cog, that holy crap, they freak out.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's really unfortunate that now you're showing your true colors because there's 5 other people that are maybe a little bit more important than you. And then there's 3 less important people. And right now you just happen to be one of the less important, not that they're not part of this machine, but yet you're not the center of attention for whatever reason it may be.
Right.
Be professional.
And you're never going to be if that's the attitude that you show. I mean, you have to be professional. You have to do your job at the best of your ability all the time.
Yeah.
And you could be a background actor one day and you could be a lead the next because somebody saw you as a background actor and they're like, hey, that person was kind of cool. I bumped into them at lunch. We talked for a couple of minutes. They seemed really easy to work with. And the next thing you know, you're getting bigger roles or you're getting featured extra roles. Mm-hmm. But if you're slouching, if you're looking in the wrong direction, if you're rolling your eyes on camera, like people notice that stuff, especially now because everything's so captured and reviewable and scrutinized that anything that you do is going to be caught.
Exactly. I definitely hear you there with the, and like, speaking of like, everybody always seeing everything. I was a little bit mortified, but at the Phoenix Fun Fusion, I was in a live body painting event.
Oh, okay.
And, it was awesome. Miss Crystal was there. She was performing on stage. Never seen her before. Awesome voice. Cool person to meet. I was super excited to see her. It was fabulous. But I showed up, and on the drive, sometimes I'll get a little bit car sick because it's, so it's a 2.5 hour drive to usually anywhere in Phoenix from where I live.
Right.
And I showed up, I was a little car sick. I was like, I just don't feel well. And I'd eaten that day and I drank water, but I have a lot of stress and a little bit of anxiety from work. And I show up and they're body painting us. And, we've been in it for probably, I think, an hour at this point, or an hour and a half. And I think we had 45 minutes left. And I told my artist, I was like, hey, I'm not feeling so well. I just need to, go sit down. And so I basically ran off stage because we were being filmed and photographed for watching the artist do that. And I walked off stage. I was like, I don't know what's wrong. And I kind of hit the ground and I was like, I need a bag, like, right away. And I threw up off stage and I was like, oh crap, this isn't good. I was like, I can't not be there. I can't not do this. I said I would do this. I came here and I was totally in my head. My artist was like, hey, it's okay. If you can't finish it, I don't care. It's all about you. It's your health. You deal with you. And so like the medics showed up and they brought me water and they're like, if this happens again, we have to take you down to the medical facility. I was like, this isn't going to happen again. I'm fine. I'm going to walk the stage when we're done. And my artist was sitting there laughing at me. And Mark comes off stage, our lead for this. And he says, hey, if you can't do this, it's not a problem. I'm so sorry. If you feel bad, don't feel obligated. I was like, no, I'm walking that stage. And he's all, okay, but just so you know, it's okay. Take care of you.
Yeah.
So I spent 15 minutes gathering it. My artist finished painting me. I walked off stage and I kind of gotten a second wind. Like if you've ever been on stage, like opening night, there is an energy in the theater on opening night like no other.
Oh yeah.
And I feel that way whenever I take the runway. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that I was going to have to walk first because we were number one. Like, we'd already been signed numbers and whatnot. And I was like, I can do this. I've done a ton of runway shows. I'll nail it. And that was something that Mark and my artist didn't know that I'd done before.
Okay.
And so Miss Crystal was up there and she was singing and Mark's like, go ahead and go. I was like, no, we have to give her moment and we have to wait for it to drop. And he just kind of looked at me and I was like, it's okay. I know what I'm doing. And I wasn't trying to back talk him, but I was like, I've got this. I promise. And I don't know if he thought I was like chickening out or what it was, but she had her moment of a couple lines and then the beat dropped and I walked out there and I just stomped it. And I just got the whole crowd riled up. I came back and Mark's like, holy shit, way to set the bar.
Nice.
And, I guess it's another thing for me, just of an integrity thing or me doing what I say I'm going to do. I was sick to death. I felt like shit. But I was not going to let that get me down or stop me when other people there that same night were just throwing a fit because, again, they weren't the center of attention.
Yeah.
And all the emails I got from the people afterwards, they were just fantastic because they're like, you did such a great job. We had no idea you were even sick. Thank you for finishing it. And Mark, the leader of the whole thing, is like, way to go. He's like, you really owned it out there. And I'm glad you pulled through. I'm glad you felt fine. And no one even knew. And so I'm like, yes, even if that's like a cover up or a face I can put on to go, I'm going to do this and get the show done no matter what. No matter if I was the small cog, no matter if I was the weakest link at that point, because I was sick, I'm still going to get up there and give it my all. And I did. And it turned out amazing. So
yeah,
it was.
I like that. But I think there's also a fine line between that and if there had been something that was seriously wrong with you, not taking care of yourself, because that's obviously the most important thing. If you have to give up 1 or 2 gigs, no matter how big those gigs are, if you're not taking care of yourself, then you might miss out on an awful lot more.
This is very true.
And not just gigs, but life in general. But if you kind of, you know your body, you know yourself. And if you can listen to yourself and go, I know this is just stress. I know that this isn't anything serious. It's going to pass. I just need to get through this. That's a little bit different than something is really wrong with me. As soon as this is done, I'm going to go to the hospital. No, you go to the hospital if that's what you need to do. So you really have to learn to listen to your body. And I mean, obviously you're pretty well in tune with yours, but how many people really are?
That's a hard one. I think you have to go through a couple things to realize what your body can handle and how far you can push yourself before you need to push yourself. Like that, I've had some things that have knocked me on my ass and have come out of nowhere to where I thought I was the healthiest person ever. And I just wasn't feeling well one day and my eye hurt. And I was like, I just need to go to the doctor. This is wrong. And I went and it put me in the hospital. And I had no idea. And I was diagnosed with Graves' disease. And my body went into a storm. And usually that puts you in the hospital. And it can really severely hurt people sometimes. And I just knew something was off. And so they didn't have to take out my thyroid, thank God. I went through I went through a little bit of radiation therapy, but they basically had told me after, I think, a couple of years that it went into remission, and it hasn't been back since. So I was like, ha, kick your ass.
Nice.
But at the time, oh my gosh, it sucked. Like my hair was falling out. Like I had zero energy. I couldn't exercise. Like I could barely lift up my head. And I was working 2 jobs. And I'm like, this sucks. So, when your body wants to tell you to stop, it does.
Yeah, absolutely. But you fought through. You got yourself fixed, and I'm really glad to hear that. So you've also done some movie work, though. You're not just doing modeling. Now, yes. The first one, it looks like that you worked on, and I loved this movie, not from a religious standpoint, but it was just such a touching film, was Conversations with God. It looks like, yes. How did you get involved with that?
I'd actually, with the other 2 indie horror films that I was in, Dan McCoy had told me that there were some films that were happening in Ashland, Oregon, and that I should go and try to apply and see if I could show up and be an extra. And I was like, well, that sounds like a great idea. So I showed up on day of set. I brought in the newspaper ad with me because I ended up finding it that said, hey, we want extras for like the crowds and some street scenes and the church scene. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll show up. So I was there all day. I had brought my little sister with me. I had brought, again, my husband at the time, who I don't think ended up getting into any of the scenes, but I mean, you can barely see my face in parts of the things, but I know it's me because those were my clothes. That was my stuff. I'm walking on the street one time, and then another time I was sitting in the church. And so I was like, this is so cool. And I got to meet the director and then the main actor and just sit and kind of chat with them for, part of the day. And then, they're like, okay, we're just going to pay you this standard SAG rate. Here you go. And, they gave me a little check and I left. And I was like, well, cool. I hope I see this or, hope something happens with it. I mean, I didn't know that it was going to get like kind of I wouldn't say like a cult following, but it is such a, I would say, I can't use the word sweet, but I want to use a sweet movie. It's very touching.
Yeah, very.
And so, for that, with it being so touching, I was thrilled that I was like, well, hey, I'm a background extra. That's so cool. And then I ended up going to a few more auditions in Oregon and landing some other just indie films that were in the area that, they're not on IMDb. So I can write them down, but I can't really credit them there.
Yeah.
And then some stuff with Dan McCoy. I had a blast working with him, and he got, quite a few like independent awards for his films. He's a great director. And my scream actually got me on the front page of the newspaper, which I still have framed. I'm that loser.
Nice. Yeah.
And so from a little kid, I was, I think 7 when I was in my first play. And I was like, this is so cool. I mean, I was kind of a fill-in, so I was like reading the script the whole time. But I was like, wow, this is cool. Everybody's watching me right now.
Right.
Like, as I speak, everyone's watching me. And I realized that at 7. And so I was like, well, what else can I do? Right. And so I started to sing into my hairbrush in my bedroom. And my mom caught me one day. And I was like, oh, crap. Mom caught me. I'm singing to the radio. I'm in trouble. And so she's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm singing. She's like, okay. She's like, can you come do that for your dad? I was like, what? And I was like blown away. I was like, Mom, why? What's going on? And I think at the time I was 10, and my mom walks me out in the living room. My dad's on the balcony above me, and I'm sitting there, I'm singing in my hairbrush, and I was just having a great time. And my dad's like, that's fantastic. He's all, where'd you learn to do that? And I said, the radio.
Yeah.
He just kind of laughed. And my mom says, look at her. Look at her as she stands here. And I remember this like it was yesterday because it's seared into my head. She's all, do you see how she's holding her hairbrush? And look at her other hand. It looks like she's holding a microphone cord in her other hand to move it out of the way. And unconsciously, I think from watching just people on TV, I was doing it. But my mom ended up taking a picture of me, and my dad had a video somewhere, and it's long gone. There was a big fire, so that sucked. But I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. I'm just kind of naturally doing this. So after that, I was in every play that I could possibly get into in school or in town. And I'd go and do special music for events or any form of church music and that kind of thing. Anywhere where I could sing or perform in front of people.
Right.
And so that just led me to plays. And so I learned to dance and do everything in theater and learned how to project my voice so that I could talk in theater without a microphone and sing without a microphone. And oh my gosh, I can't even tell you even how excited it makes me to talk about it because it brings so much joy to my heart. That might sound so corny, but
no, not at all, because it's your passion. I mean, that's the moment where you found your passion for being in theater.
Oh yeah. And I thought it was fantastic. And ever since then, I've, I'd do anything to do, film, theater, and everything that comes with those things. And so I guess modeling was kind of natural after that. Just in the fact that it's a lot easier to go, okay, I'm going to book this modeling thing and go with a full-time job, right?
Right.
It was like, well, and the sad part about like a lot of it was I didn't pursue my dreams sooner because I had a horrible ex-husband.
Right.
And, the same guy that wanted to beat up that one photographer way freaking years ago. So anytime I'd like try to do anything, he would so put me down. He'd tell me I couldn't do it. He'd tell me I was never going to make anything of myself. And I was like, wow, I was so manipulated that it sucked. And I eventually left because he decided to throw me against the dining room table and then to throw me in the bedroom wall. And so once I saw my body print of a hole in the wall, I was like, yeah, I should probably leave.
It's a shame that it takes something that extreme for us to realize that we deserve better, though. I mean, it is typical.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that he didn't support you alone should have been sort of that red flag that says, this probably isn't the right person, because if they don't believe in me while I'm wanting these dreams to come true, what is our relationship? But we don't.
Exactly.
We wait for something that's got to be, something either physical or something so horrible that we can't look at them the same anymore before we're willing to cut that tie.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to kind of, our human nature of, we said we'd do this, so we're going to do it. And I said I married this person. I'm going to sit here. And it took me, I would say I was beat up more than once by this man. And it took me going to school, because finally I was like, you know what, I've had it. I hate my job. I had an OCD boss who would vacuum herself out of her house every day.
Wow.
Yeah. And her son and her maid told us this. I was like, wait, you have a maid and you still vacuum yourself out of the house?
Amazing.
I was, oh, wow. Yeah, she was a piece of work. And I was like, I hate it here. Like, my older sister told me, you can't go to school and quit your job and take that many credits. She's like, you've never been to college. You don't know what you're doing. My husband at the time says, yeah, you're never going to be able to pass that. You were never good at math. And I had so many like negative things. And so right kind of when I started going to school is when my ex-husband decided, well, you know what? I'm going to unleash the beast. And he just happened to be a peace officer. And so he thought he was God. He'd carry a gun around. He worked at a prison. He did all this sort of stuff, and he'd come home and take it out on me. And it took me until I had several bruises, and I'm surprised I didn't have any broken bones, to where my friend was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm scared to tell anybody.
Right.
And I know that's a stigma, but holy shit, is it true? Because you're so embarrassed to tell even your family.
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell my older sister until years later that he beat me up, because it was so embarrassing.
Well, I think there's the embarrassment of telling others, even though the ones that you're the closest to, or even like a complete stranger, like a counselor or a helpline that you can call. But there's also as much as I realize this is true, I still don't want to admit it to myself.
Yep.
And then the fear of, what am I going to do now?
Oh, I had that big time, until finally one day, when the table was broken because he was drunk and he was beating me up, I was like, okay, I have to pack all my stuff tomorrow. And so I packed everything that I could possibly fit into my Jeep, and I left. And I ended up sleeping in my Jeep for about 3 months, actually, at the lake. It was an interesting experience.
But that was probably great for you to isolate yourself and kind of reflect and figure out what you want to do.
Oh, it totally was. It's exactly what I needed, just to clear my head. But the bad part was I was still going to school at the time. So.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. And so I was taking, showers at friends' houses, and, making sure I was doing everything. And so I was bound and determined to finish school, because so many people said, yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah. I think it's great when you can turn negativity into motivation. I really do. Because that is an incredible tool for us, because there are so many people that, whether they don't believe in you for whatever reason, or whether they are jealous of the fact that you're going for your dreams and they don't, and instead of stepping up, they'd rather bring you down. But it would be better to just not have that in your life, right? To see that coming, which I'm sure you do now. If there's anybody,
hindsight 2020.
Yeah, exactly. But that to me is always a big sign whenever people start saying you can't do that, or that's not going to work out, or, a lot of people try, and what makes you think you're going to get through, or all those things that you hear from people say, and they're always the same phrases.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so oversaturated, or there's not enough work for anybody, or, well, what do you know about that kind of art, or whatever the thing's going to be.
Yeah.
And to take that and not let it crush you, and say, yeah, you know what, you're right. Maybe I just shouldn't. I'll be happy at my job that I hate.
Yeah. And I really think that when people project that on you, that it's them admitting their failures, and they don't want to see you succeed. So why not bring you down, because misery loves company. Exactly.
I mean, I can understand a certain element of concern of, are you sure you want to put all your eggs in one basket? And, I can at least understand that one, even though it's because they don't understand the passion and the dedication and what that really is.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I mean, to actually tell somebody you can't do this, or you're not good at this, or whatever, maybe you weren't good in math in high school, but maybe situations that you've been in life have made you have a different perspective on it. And now you're really good at it. Who's to say? Just because you weren't good at something 3 years ago doesn't mean you can't be good at it now.
Exactly. And because everybody changes. And if you're smart enough to grow with change, you are going to change. I mean, I don't know, that's kind of sounds backwards, but it's true.
Mhm.
If you tell yourself enough that everything's fine, I can do this, I believe in myself, eventually your body's going to catch up. Your dreams are going to catch up too. And it'll happen. And that, might not sound like the greatest piece of philosophy, but it's gotten me where I am. I mean, when I took all of everyone's negativity and I turned it around to say, I am going to get this degree, I'm going to do this. And even though I knew nothing about it, I mean, honestly, I went on it kind of at a whim. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get this done. And even my advisors were like, are you sure you want to do this? Because this is a really large load.
Right.
And they'd almost laugh at me kind of in a joking way, but they're with me, And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I did. And I finished a 4-year degree in 3.5 years.
Nice.
And I got my bachelor's of science in geology. And I landed a fantastic job before graduating. And most of my graduating class went back to school to do something different because they didn't have the motivation to go get a job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sad. It really is. And you think, though, you're graduating with, a bunch of other people that just got the same degree in the same town that you live in. So what just happened to the job market? Now you're all fighting for a handful of jobs. I remember years ago, I was going to go to school for medical billing and coding because I'd been laid off from my job. And I hadn't really hit my stride as a musician yet. And I thought, okay, well, I can get this degree in 12 months. It's going to be intense, but I can do it. And then I'll have something to back me up in the workforce. But then I signed up for it. And then I started thinking about it. And I looked around and I thought about two things. One, they're really pushing this degree. So how many other people are going to be starting the same time I do, ending the same time I do?
True.
And saturating the market. And the second thing was, how much does this job actually pay? And the average salary at that time was $28,000.
Oh.
Like, what am I paying $18,000 for to get a $28,000 job that I'm going to be fighting a lot of people to get? I mean, it's basically going to be like a zombie apocalypse trying to get this job.
Yeah.
And so I didn't end up starting for that reason. I thought there's just no, no point in doing it. And I think that's the thing is it's just so easy to get suckered into things that look good. Just like a photo shoot or a movie opportunity or anything even in this business without really, checking to make sure that you know what you're getting into. And it sounds like you're really good at that. You really want to know what's happening, except for last week with Summer, where, but that was because you couldn't hear Alexis on the phone.
I could barely hear her, but I was like, it sounds fun and I'm here. And I really respect James Sazzer. He's a good photographer. He's amazing. And so he vouched for the model that was asking for people, saying her other 3 models flaked on her the day of. And I was like, oh, that sucks. And I know what that feels like. So I was like, well, I'm here. Why not try it? They want me as I am. I don't have to get bloody, thank God.
Right.
And I can go do this. So yeah, I put myself out there on a whim. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I mean, hell, I was thrilled to meet Summer. It was awesome to listen. I got to meet you, and I've had a fantastic time with our emails and talking and
me too.
Telling you my ridiculous stories.
Yes, and I've loved every one of them. But that's the thing is sometimes you do have to take a chance. If long as you're listening to your intuition and there's no real red flag there. But like Summer said in the panel, sometimes she's had girls up there topless to talk about the sex to really kind of drive that point home. Sometimes she hasn't. And every year, whatever she does, they tell her was the wrong thing. But I think it would have been very awkward, though, had you agreed to this and then shown up and going, okay, well, just take your top off and we'll go ahead and do your makeup and then go out there.
That would have been a little awkward.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that case, well, you agreed to it. And, what do you do? It's a tough situation. And when Alexis had contacted me that morning to ask me if I knew anybody, I don't know anybody that would have done it nude. So I really had very few people I could reach out to see if they might know anyone. Because they do have such, a pretty big network in Phoenix, but I'm like, I don't even know who to ask. I don't know who would do that because the people I know absolutely would not.
Yeah.
you know.
And yeah, it would definitely have to be, I guess, someone who was real comfortable standing in front of a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And hoping that those people would respect what you were doing and not just snatch out their cell phones real quick and do whatever they wanted to do with their cell phones. Because there was a lot of people there that were personally recording that because I was watching them,
Mm-hmm.
And that's all well and cool and stuff. But yeah, if there would have been topless models there and that would have been part of the gig, I'd have gone, well, shit, I already said yes, so I guess I better just close my eyes and gulp and hope that it comes out.
But that's the thing is that, everything that you do follows your reputation because your work goes on your resume. Obviously, you're going to put this on your resume that you were a part of a panel at Comic-Con or Fan Fusion. That's a big deal. You know? So if you agree to do it and then you have to do it in a way that you really don't want to be known for doing it, do you leave it off the resume? Do you put it on the resume? Like how do you even come to terms with that decision?
Yeah, that's a hard one for just your reputation alone, because is somebody going to think negative of you for going, oh, you didn't know what you're getting into? Not that they would see that, reading your resume, but maybe hearing it down the line. But maybe if they did hear that, you agreed to it, kind of knew what was going on, but weren't exactly clear, but you still did it. You still showed up because you said you would. I still think that is just another part of you're sticking by your word.
Right.
And I guess that really means a lot to me with people. I've had a lot of people flake out on me.
Sure.
And I'm not those people, or I'm not a person to flake out. And even say, my most recent experience with having to just end a relationship with a photographer was, there's only so many times somebody can drag you on and tell you a story before you're like, dude, you're telling me the same story and nothing's happened.
Right.
And you are dragging this out. None of what you said has come to fruition. And so you're just sitting there going, is this person just really full of crap? And everything is drama. And so I had to finally go, something's wrong. And I just need to, kind of, it was more him kind of pissing me off because of what he said about me before I ended it, to finally go, dude, you know what? There's a bolt loose. And my boyfriend was like, thank God you've ended that. And to come to find out what it was, he was so angry that I posted just tons of photos of other photographers I work with. Mm-hmm. And there are a couple people I work with repeatedly because they love working with me. They hire me for their classes. They have me down for special shoots or ideas. And so, when I get those photos back, I post them, right?
Right.
It's how you grow, and they're amazing photos. Well, this photographer, he'd send me like a photo a month, but yet expected me, because I was in a project with him, to post a photo a week of his. And I was like, you give me a photo a month, I don't know how I'm supposed to post a photo a week because you don't give them. He's all, we'll repost the same one.
Oh, right.
And I was like, well, I don't know if you'd look at my feed, but I try to post, about 5 pictures a week, and I can't repost the same picture every week because that's going to look weird.
Right.
And he was so bent out of shape. He was so pissed off. And he's all, you work too much with this person. That's the only person you ever post. And I was like, oh, this is a jealousy thing.
Yeah.
And come to find out, him and his girlfriend were severely jealous that I wasn't posting his work and I was posting someone else's work, because I get work from them. Like I couldn't even tell you how many photos I have from this photographer I work with all the time, that I could fill up my entire feed for months.
Sure.
With nothing but his stuff. But you just don't do that. You mix it up. But yeah, I've gotten 5 photos, I think, total from a guy in 6 months, but yet I'm supposed to post a photo a week. So I was like, dude, you're barking up the wrong tree. And it was a sad relationship to end. Unfortunately, he used me and my family. And it sucked because my family invited him in. They let him do what they've never let anybody else do, because they own an exotic animal park.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. I am a huge kitty cat fan. they own lions and tigers and all kinds of stuff. So growing up, that's what I did. I hung out with exotic animals.
Wow.
And I was like, how great would it be to go take photos with my kitties? And so, I got to do that, but the person just completely took advantage of it and ended up just, I would say, using a small nonprofit business for his gain without paying any respect to that business. And you just don't do that. And it's unfortunate. I mean, my family's given their life for what they do, and it's amazing work. I mean, I would say that my parents are my biggest role models ever. They're
That's
amazing
awesome.
people. I mean, I can't even tell you the stuff that my mom has done with a lion. I mean, she could smack them and tell them, you're not going to do this. I'm going to give you a bath. You sit down.
Wow.
And they'll sit down and she'll give them a bath. I have it on video.
I was hired to do part of the ADR for Melanie Griffith's first movie, Roar.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
And the only version that they had, they were doing the DVD release, but they only had, I think it was the German version or French or something like that. And so myself and a couple other people were hired to do, record all the voiceovers for that movie. And I'm watching the movie going, who decided that it was a good idea to write this and film it with real live animals? I mean, these people were, I don't care how well you train them, at any moment, they could just go, I'm done with you, and just claw your face off.
Yes.
And there were scenes where the lions had to be aggressive. So I don't know. I would have been terrified if I was on that set. You would have probably been like, oh yeah, it's fine. This is what we do. We just smack them around and put them in their place.
Well, actually, there's not much smacking. It's more of it's a vinegar bottle.
Oh,
and you just hold it in your hand and you squirt the vinegar and they're like, oh my gosh, that stinks. Get it away.
Yeah.
And there's, if you were actually to go to slap a lion, he'd slap you right back, 100 times harder, and you'd go flying across the cage.
I would think so. So if I ever go to the Serengeti, I'm bringing bottles of vinegar with me to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and you'll be just fine. Drench yourself in salad dressing. You'll be okay.
Now, does that work for the alligators and the hippopotamus and everything else out there?
I've never been around those, so you're on your own.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, before we go, one thing that I like to ask my guests, because you've obviously been successful. You've done a lot of work. People really like your personality, your professionalism. Other than those components, for somebody that wants to do what you're doing, they want to do modeling, they want to get into acting, what suggestions would you have for them for getting started?
I have a handful, but I'll try to make them quick so that I don't take up too much of your time.
No, it's your time.
But first off, I'd say have somebody that just take pictures of you. Someone you're comfortable with, somebody you can smile with and talk to. Just have them take photos of you. And then after you get those photos back, without being too critical of yourself, pick them apart. Look at how your hands were, where your eyes were, how you're holding your face, if it's tight, if you're pursing your lips, if your eyes are weird. Like, pick them apart and then take those things you've picked apart and practice them in the mirror. A mirror will be your best friend, because you're going to realize that when you cheat different parts of your body, it's going to look different. And that's what the camera's going to see. And so something that feels so awkward might look gorgeous and very natural in a photo. And then after you think you've got that down, find somebody that's an amateur and say, hey, if you're looking to take photos, I'm looking to get into modeling. Can, we trade some work here and see how that works? And then after you've done that, get used to hearing the word no and build a tough skin, because you're gonna hear the word no, sorry, you don't have the right look, you're not the right type, you're too heavy, you're too thin, you need to gain weight, your boobs are too big, your hair isn't perfect, your skin's not clear enough, I don't know what's wrong with your eyebrows, you need to find someone to do makeup, you don't have the right wardrobe. You're going to hear so much negativity that if you're not the right type of person to go, oh, well, sorry, bye, I hope you find the right person, then you're going to internalize it and you're going to beat yourself up, and it'll get to you. It causes a little bit of depression. I've, already been there, done that. You just have to gain a tough skin and then stick to your word. People are going to know you by your reputation. And your reputation is going to be told by the people you work with, whether it's models, photographers, videographers, directors. Those people are going to know you for how professional you were, no matter what the situation. Whether you're sitting there and it's snowing outside and you're in a freezing cold lake and you're trying to make it look beautiful, or whether it's 113 and you're trying to make the sun look sexy. You will be known by the amount of effort that you put into it. And if you're willing to give it your all, no matter what, people are going to know you as genuine, and they're going to believe your reputation. They're going to believe what you say, and know that you're going to be the right person for the job. And it takes a little bit to learn it, but if you can really listen to people that have already been through it and be professional about it, you're going to go so much further, so much faster than those people that had to learn it the hard way.
That's excellent advice. And when I would say that when you're judging yourself on those, especially on those first photos, I would imagine really learning and understanding lighting and shadows would be very important, because you never really see yourself under that kind of lighting. So to understand how it works and why some shadows are the way they are, that may make your body look completely different and misrepresented, I would think that would be a pretty important thing to study.
Thank you for bringing that up. It almost completely skipped my mind. But yes, one thing that photographers really notice is when you can find your own light, and you know that light casting on you this way is going to create a shadow in this other direction. And so that's another thing with playing in the mirror. You're going to realize what things do. And if you can learn to find the light, even if you close your eyes, you can still find the light. And learning that is a great technique. One parting thing, I was with a photographer a couple months ago, and we were in a studio and we had very little light, and it was coming from both sides. And I'd cheat one cheek to one side and one cheek to the other side. And he's all, it's really fabulous that you know where the light is. He's all, even though they're coming from both sides, you're using both lights because they were two different colors. He's all, the last model I worked with, I think she could find every dark spot with her nose that was possible. He's all, I don't know if she spent a lot of time brown nosing or what it was. He's all, but she couldn't find the light.
Oh,
God bless her.
Well, but see, that's all part of really knowing your craft too. I mean, it's not like modeling is just you show up and they put you in an outfit and they tell you how to pose and they take the shots and you go home. You need to know what you're doing. You need to learn how to take direction. You need to learn what the terms are so that when a director tells you to twist a certain way or get in a certain position, you know what they're talking about. Because if they have to train you, they're probably not going to call you back.
No, they will not. And that's a very good point. That I had a text message from a photographer. I said, hey, how'd that next photo shoot go out with that girl that they found? And he's all, it was okay. He's all, but you're a hard act to follow. I'll see you next week.
Oh, awesome. But that's it. If you've set that standard for yourself, and obviously, with the attitude and the focus that you have, it's really easy that would come out in the shoot. Plus, you're not going to be tense during the shoot. So you're going to have the right expressions. Your face is going to be softer because you're not stressed. I mean, there's so many things that fall in line with being confident and comfortable and building those relationships. I
fully agree with that.
I like when people do. It's nice to be able to say positive things in a world that I don't live in, but just from the people that I've known, and the photo shoots that I've been on for like my album covers and stuff, it's really cool to have an understanding of what people go through, because it is not a simple point and click profession. And I think that kind of like people look at acting, oh my God, that must be so much fun. It's a lot of fun to sit in a makeup chair for 4.5 hours to go work for 2.5 hours.
No.
And mostly sit around and wait.
Yep. But it's part of the process. And so many people think that, oh, it's so glamorous. You take photos. It's like, okay, you sit there for 4 hours and you contort your body and flex your stomach and make sure all your muscles look toned. It's a workout like in itself. And it's not all just glamorous, but surprisingly, there are a lot of models that think you just show up and smile and someone's going to take your photo and everything's going to be great.
In fact, I would say very little of it is glamorous at all, because even when you're shooting the scenes, it's not like when you watch the movie. So, it's a lot of it is awkward and cut. And now we need to insert this shot. Okay, well, what position was I in? And so many little details that have to be dealt with. And I don't know how much people actually get to enjoy the work versus the final product.
Yeah, that's true. The effort that goes into it. I mean, even the few films that I've been in, I'm knocking on wood here because I want them to be many more.
Yeah.
But the amount of effort, I would say, that just the stage director goes through, and the props person, and making sure that you're in the right place after they cut and have to reset. And it's amazing the amount of effort, and to go over it and do it several times. Yeah, people don't realize that it's not cut and dry. It is a business, and it is a job to a sense. Sure, there's something fun about all of it. We all do it for different reasons, but yeah, if people don't realize the work that goes into it, they're just missing out.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I love about the fact that we have like DVDs now as opposed to VHS tapes or watching movies on television only, because if they have gone to the length of doing like a behind the scenes documentary or something, you really get to have a much better appreciation for the film, seeing how it was put together and the challenges that they might have had. Or, I remember Jenna Fisher talking about one particular episode of The Office. It was the dinner party. And there's a scene where Steve Carell is really proud of his plasma TV. And so he's like, if and it's like, a 13-inch television that he has mounted on the wall. Like you could not see it unless you were standing in front of it. And it's out like 2 inches from the wall. And he says, so if a lot of people are here and we need more room, I just move it out of the way. And he literally pushes the television 2 inches towards the wall. And they were busting up laughing so hard, take after take after take, that it almost took all day to film that scene, just because they couldn't get through it, because no matter how many times they saw it, it was still funny because he would do it a little bit different every time, And that's, those are the things that you have to deal with. And sometimes it is long hours and all day in production. Now that's going to affect the entire production, because now the episode is behind schedule. Now the wardrobe people are behind schedule. The craft services people have to change their schedule. All because that one scene was hard to film. And it's like a 5-second thing.
Yeah.
I'm
so grateful for, the behind the scenes takes that they do on DVDs, just for reasons like that. I can't tell you how many hours I've spent watching the behind the scenes, just getting ready for that day, going, okay, I know what to expect. I know what's going to happen, psyching myself into it. Just my determination is just right there, just going, I'm going to do this someday. I'm going to be on one of those.
Yeah. Why not? You just keep putting yourself out there, keep that reputation solid. And then you keep going on auditions, and sooner or later background work turns into featured background work, which turns into not lead, but kind of behind the leads. And then, like supporting actor. And then it turns
supporting.
Into, like, it just keeps growing and growing, but you show yourself, your real self, that attitude, that conviction for your professionalism to the people that you work with. And the next thing you know, who was that girl we were working with on that film? I really want her. She would be really good in this other project. And then you start getting calls.
I hope so.
But if you stay consistent, I believe that that's the biggest part of it, because otherwise you won't be as noticeable, or you'll be looked at as difficult or challenging. And unless they really need that on a film, which no one ever does, probably not going to get the call.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. It has been such a joy to talk to you, and you had a lot of great advice.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will have your links posted, obviously, in the show notes, as we do every week. Yeah, every week.
Awesome.
Because every week I have a new show. I don't know what's wrong with me today. But in any case, we will have those links in the show notes. And obviously, we're excited to follow your career. I really look forward to it. I have so much respect for people that have the attitude and the focus and direction that you do. And it was something I sensed about you very quickly when we started talking, when we met a couple weeks ago. And,
thank you.
It's nice to see that there are people out there that look at things the right way and are willing to work hard for it.
I really appreciate hearing that, Scott. I really do.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, definitely keep us posted on things. And
I will.
yeah, look forward to talking to you again.
Oh, great. It was so great talking with you, and I hope you have an amazing evening.
Thank you. You too. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, thank you very much, Elley Ringo a.k.a. Elley Cat, for coming on the show. You were a fantastic guest, very exciting, really fascinating stuff. It's really amazing as I'm learning everyone's different experiences through these interviews, and I hope that you guys are enjoying them as much as I am. And looking at the numbers, I would say that you are. So thank you for joining us for episode 48 of the HaskinCast Podcast. Always a joy. Appreciate you guys coming along. Make sure that you're sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. Help me get the word out, because that's how these things really happen. I can only do so much on my own. It really takes an audience to help promote what we do here. So get your name on that mailing list or the list on Facebook for that flash drive. And we'll see you again next week for part 2 of Marcus Weiss.